This episode of the podcast is brought to you by patreon.com/lightscameranonsense. Visit patreon.com/lightscameranonsense to help support your favorite new movie podcasts. Now, let's roll that reel. They come together in a little magical
sandwich. You say sandwich?
Sandwich.
Delicious. Does it have, what toppings does it have on that delicious sandwich?
Oh, man, it is just mayo.
Oh, that's the worst condiment.
Sorry, I was actually thinking...
It's a mayo sandwich?
No. I was actually, in my head, I was thinking literally everything but mayo.
Oh, okay.
And then I was going to switch to just mustard, because really that's all I
and then you combined the two. Just mayo.
Just mayo.
That's the worst. That is the just the tangiest, creamiest sandwich. No, I'd rather have just
with
bread.
Mayo.
Gross.
And Miracle Whip's not much better. So
Miracle Whip has always confused me because when I was a kid, I would watch the commercials for the Stay Puft, like cream marshmallow stuff that you can use as topping. And then I would see Miracle Whip and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm a dumb idiot kid. I'm going to combine the two things because they look similar. Or no, I'm sorry. I didn't actually combine the two. In my head, I combined them both to be the same thing. So eventually one day...
Like your superhero origin story or your villain origin story.
I'm a very creamy white man.
Where you went to go for marshmallow puff and then got imitation mayonnaise instead.
Exactly.
Like,
and then
that would turn anyone evil. Absolutely.
That's basically what I did. So I was a kid and I wanted to have a marshmallow sandwich because I was fat and an idiot. But then I decided to spread Miracle Whip on just 2 pieces of bread, and I took a bite in it, and it ruined Jet Puff for a long while. Like, it ruined marshmallows for a long while for me.
That's sad. That's so sad.
It is. A childhood ruined is a childhood damned for all eternity.
You're getting a clearer picture of the man that sits before you now.
The very pale man that never sees the light of day. Hello everyone and welcome to Lights, Camera, Nonsense, where we give you all the latest movie magic you may have missed. I'm Nick Pastyface Simmons.
Oh, and I'm Zach, back in the habit Smith.
Heyo! Giving that old gospel cheer.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
And
Except that I didn't watch anything to do with Sister Act, so...
That's fair. We'll get into what exactly we watched.
Sister Act is never far from my mind, though.
Why?
Great movies. Fuck you.
Wait, the sequel or the original?
Absolutely, both of them. Great movies.
Are you sure? When was the last time you watched them?
Quality level, same as Godfather 1 and 2.
Oh my God! On Sunday, September 5th, 2021. Let's dive into the previews. If you are watching us on YouTube, you're actually watching us later than when we posted on Patreon at patreon.com/lightscameranonsense. If you sign up for just $1, you get all of our content on our Patreon a day early before it gets released on YouTube. Or you get to see exclusive videos that we never release to YouTube, and they're only on patreon.com/lightscameranonsense. And if you just don't want to look at our faces, which is sad and rude and mean, then you can head on over to any podcast service of your choice, like iTunes and Spotify, and just download the podcast. Just look for Lights, Camera, Nonsense in your podcast category. Zach, I nailed that.
You did. That was actually
round
of applause.
I know.
Round of applause.
I'm usually really bad at. I've been bad at intros the last couple of weeks. It's honestly really depressing.
That's generous, but yes.
I want to. If I cast a wide net when it comes to like guilting myself or making myself feel bad, I'm gonna cast a wide net because like I'd rather put myself down for a larger amount, so it's like it's spread out a little more thinly and it's easier to kind of rope in than just like for one thing, because then if it's just the one thing, then I immediately focus on only that for a long time. So
going back to your Miracle Whip story, it all has to do because you went like big old lump, like right in the center, like yes, fuck yeah, marshmallow, get it on there,
not a dollop, but a
fucking
flump.
lump.
A lump.
You could hear it go when it goes down on the bread.
Yeah.
And so now, because of that experience, you're like, no, just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
A little bit and spread it. Just spread it. A little bit of a long way.
Going back to our Bob Ross talk, it's just all about evening out those layers and making sure it's evenly set in your bread.
Absolutely.
I think we're both kind of hungry, honestly.
I could eat
a marshmallow sandwich. That sounds good. Zach, what have you been watching?
So I only watched technically one thing, but it was a lot of one thing. It was a lot of one thing. So I have a old friend living with us right now, just extenuating circumstances, and he had never seen Ted Lasso. Oh. So we sat down and I'd already recommended it to him, but he had never really had the chance beforehand to watch it.
No, he was avoiding the recommendation, but then he got stuck in the circumstances. And
yes, no, we're going to watch Ted Lasso right now. So then we're watching Ted Lasso season 1. Mm-hmm. Casey's over in the corner reading. And the thing with Casey is, as I've detailed several times on this podcast, she will refuse to watch good things just on virtue of me recommending them.
Such a mean such a mean way to handle something, just because it's in spite of your recommendation.
Yes, that is exactly right. But every time, and this is what doesn't make sense, every time we sit down and we watch the thing I've been recommending, she'll be like, yeah, that was good, I probably should have watched that beforehand.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, you should have. So we're watching season 1 of Ted Lasso. We're at episode 7, I think it was at the time.
I think is there only 8 episodes or
10? There's 10 episodes.
That's right.
Of season 1, there's 10 episodes. Right. And it was the episode where he is talking with his wife outside when they come to visit him. And so of course Ted Lasso's a good show. So she gets stuck watching it, and all I hear is, damn it.
Because she knows she was wrong and denying your recommendation there.
So then she watched up to where we had watched the next day.
Right.
All in one day. And so then, as a group, these two different parties that I had gotten to consume Ted Lasso just by virtue of outside interference.
That's a football reference. I know sports.
We finished up season 1 and then we dove straight into season 2.
Yes.
So at the time, season 2, when we watched it, it was on episode 6. Mm-hmm. So we watched and caught up all the way through that, and then episode 7 just dropped last Friday. So we watched that one.
So you're all caught up.
All caught up. From now we'll just be finishing out the last 3 episodes on week to week.
And you're normally the type, because we've talked about this before, where you kind of want to once it's all out, that's when you want to kind of dive into it. But Ted Lasso is a very unique challenge when it comes to that, because it's a very binge-worthy show.
Absolutely. I mean, you just keep on eating it up. Once you pop, you just can't stop.
No, exactly. Once you lasso, you just can't passo.
Passo. Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was also, I probably wouldn't have jumped on season 2 right now if I hadn't started rewatching season 1.
Right.
Also, but then, once you get on that train, then, everybody's just like, fuck, keep going, bro.
Yeah. And I was really worried that after season 1 being so, I won't say perfect. Nothing's perfect. But damn near close. Yeah, damn near close to perfect. I mean, it had a high standard. I had a high bar that I had to cross. And so far, it's been killing it. It's just more Ted Lasso, and I'm loving it.
Yeah. So. I will say, I don't think it's been as good as season 1. Granted, going back to what you said about the high bar quality. To me, I think season 1 of Ted Lasso is a perfect season of television. Mm-hmm. For what it's trying to do, they have good stakes, they have good conflict, but it's not too down on itself, and its thesis is well formed and completed by the end of it.
Right.
I think the problem with season 2 that I've had so far, and I don't anticipate this changing much by the end of the last 3 episodes, so I feel okay in saying this now, but I'm willing to be disproven wrong. Or proven wrong, rather.
Disproven wrong.
Disproven wrong. I think it's a little scatterbrained sometimes. I don't think it really knows what its central conflict is a lot of the time. So it's taking, and especially because they built up these great characters in season 1, they're like, okay, well now we have all these different characters with their different problems that we can focus on. So it's almost a little bit more like an ensemble show now instead of just Ted. Yeah, which is what season 1 very much is. A little bit of Roy, but mostly Ted. So now you have, Keely and Roy's relationship. You have Nate's stuff going on. Ted's kind of relationship with the new therapist that they bring onto the team. A bunch of other different, like, smaller relationship stuff, too. And Rebecca's got a whole thing going on, Sam. So you have all these, like, individual characters that in season 1, I think were kind of focused into one thing. Yeah,
into dealing with Ted Lasso's character.
Right. They had other stuff going on outside of Ted, but like it all kind of like wrapped itself neatly. You could see how things were connected to one another,
right?
Like how this would connect to this. Whereas in season 2, a lot of your problems are singularly one or two people's problems, and they're not necessarily always connected to the other ones. So in that respect, I think it's not as focused. Not to say that it's not good. I'm still very much enjoying it.
It could all culminate in an episode or two.
So. It could. And I am enjoying all those individual stories on their own. I don't get a sense of this was our point. This is the point we're trying to get across. A singular point, anyway. There are different points that I can see them sort of forming, but because you don't have a whole lot of time to focus on those, they often get wrapped up really quickly, and the payoff, I don't feel, is as satisfying a lot of the times, because you're like, oh, okay, this is the problem that we're going to have this season. And then by the end of it, it's like, no, problem done.
Yeah.
Which makes for like feel good television, because it's like, not those issues don't stick around for long enough to kind of blow up. Except there's clearly one that is coming to a head by the end of
episode
the
7.
last episode.
Yeah.
But all the other ones are just kind of like, this is the monster of the week sort of formula.
Right. It's more monster of the week, case of the week. Those very serial type of shows that you see on any kind of network television.
Yeah.
The problem that they have to solve by the end of the episode. Whereas with the first season, it was all just kind of like we've already established. Everyone's kind of interpersonal relationships with how they're dealing with Ted's appearance in their lives, and it was all just kind of networked. So if I had to be metaphorical, the first season is like a tree with the trunk being Ted and everything kind of branching off into the other characters. This one's more like a web, like a spider web with a little stickiness, and every single point of the spider web is a different character, and it's all kind of like this character bumps into this character and then deal with them. I mean, in episode 7, you have multiple different characters all show up in the same room because they're trying to just do one thing or another.
Yeah.
And they're all trying to solve each other's problems. It's very much a everyone who wasn't a diamond dog.
Yes.
trying to help out.
Like that's a great scene. So again, I want to reiterate, the stuff that's there is really good.
Yeah.
I still am very much enjoying myself. I love the show. I could take a bajillion other seasons of it. I just think in terms of gravity and like yeah, like oomph behind it. I don't like. There's something missing, and maybe again I'll be proven wrong, and I'll stick a landing that's like, oh fuck, they like all those things were connected, but
Yeah.
that has I feel a risk of going for a huge leap of logic, especially since a lot of those problems have already gotten solved. So it'd be kind of like regressing to progress, which is like that's how you make shows feel stale and like
Kinda
nothing's
samey.
happening. Yeah. And to the point of our case of the week, monster of the week comparison, I think the that's fine in a show that's 20 episodes long. For a show that's half the length, I think you really need to be focused on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And maybe this is just kind of an amalgamation of like being mostly developed in the middle of a pandemic and not having a whole lot of options or what. But yeah, there's just something missing there. But again, I'm still loving it.
I think the point that we've come across, and it's kind of just been unsaid up until this point, but where the first season we were kind of just being introduced to these characters one by one. I mean, we get first introduced by Ted Lasso's hiring and everyone's kind of reaction to it, but we kind of just learn about these characters as the show goes along. Like I'm already blanking on everybody's name.
Like Roy and Jamie,
yeah,
Keely, Rebecca.
Rebecca, that's who it is. But all of these characters who are like, I can't believe we have to deal with this character and all that kind of stuff. And it's just kind of like we're along for the ride with Jason Sudeikis' character. And with this season, it's just like, all right, we know who they are. We watched the first season. We assume you watched the first season too. All of these people are real people in the bounds of the show, so they all have other stuff that's going on. It's not just about Ted.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think the main problem is really the fact that all your issues get solved in basically an episode in season 2. Going back to season 1, you're talking about all these separate people. They are all reacting to Ted's appearance and his stuff, but they do all have their own problems too, which are season-long things.
Right.
Keely and Jamie don't break up until like the halfway through the season, and then it's about Keely and Roy's relationship.
That's a good point.
The whole season is revolving around Rebecca being like having a toxic reaction to her really shitty and abusive marriage, ex-marriage, and her realizing that she's been kind of a shadow of the person that she once was.
Right.
So it's like on top of all that, with Ted's divorce and kind of friction near the end with Beard, like the main thing ends up being that sometimes Ted's toxic positivity it irks people and it's not appropriate at certain times.
Yeah.
So like there's all these season long kind of problems, that I feel have a good payoff by the end.
Actually, that's something that's bothering me now that I think about it. You framed it you framed it perfectly there. The problem that has always been kind of nagging me about this season is that you're right. The problems are very much just here it is, and they fixed it because everybody's in such a good relationship now that they've all kind of gotten used to his toxic positivity. And meanwhile, Ted himself is still dealing with his anxiety and dealing with the basically his divorce still at this point. He's still reeling from that, and he didn't even get to solve all of the issues that he had by the end of season 1. It was just the story got to the decisive concluding point for a majority of the characters. That's actually kind of bothersome in a way, but like because the content is so heartwarming, just the characters are so delightful, or at least endearing,
Yeah.
It's just a more digestible show. So it's kind of weird in that it's a very two-faced kind of show.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know
I
if
don't
I
mean
look
that
at
in a
it.
negative way.
I don't know if I'd look at it that.
But it's basically, it's got a lot going on if you really truly think about how these characters are reacting to each other and how they're basically dealing with their issues.
Yeah, and I think I think this conversation would probably be a little different if the show had ended after season 1.
Yeah.
Because knowing what we know now, we know that Ted's stuff isn't really resolved. But the way season 1 ends is kind of like, well, he's making peace, he's making progress, right? So that's kind of an ending in and of itself. Is like, well, he passed the hurdle, and he's just kind of growing from there.
Right.
So I definitely don't want to say like the show would be better off for stopping after season 1. I just think the issue of maybe going back to that regressing to progress situation in season 2 for Ted wouldn't be so there. Because he's still dealing with all that. Now he has the added, they kind of mentioned it in season 1 where he has these misgivings with therapy, so he's dealing with that.
Yeah.
And and again, all that stuff is great. Everyone acts their asses off. It's fantastic. I just think on the meta level, on the wide kind of outlook, you can see like some little nitpicky things here and there. Like, well, I don't necessarily know if this was done in the most efficient way or, such and such, but then you start to get lost in the weeds and,
I think the biggest issue that this show has is that it limits itself to a 30-minute, 10-episode long season. And I think what they would have to compromise doing is either getting rid of character storylines and integrating them elsewhere, or just be in the background, comedy relief, etc. Or you would have to stretch out and extend the stories like they did in season 1, but they would have to stretch out and extend the episode lengths or the number of episodes. Because the way that they are trying to basically smush together all of these, here's a problem, here's it solved, issues that we continually bring up as the main crux of our problem with it, is that it in the long run, we can see it ending. Hopefully it does wrap up perfectly. We still have 3 episodes to go, but it's very difficult to imagine that happening given how many character stories they have to wrap up.
Right. Well, and quite frankly, to do that in a manner, I think that would match at least somewhat the energy of the first season, they would have to come up with a main antagonistic storyline that all these things could wrap up around.
Right.
And I suppose they could do that, but I don't think starting that on your episode that's your third to last.
Yeah.
And trying to do that in 3 episodes is going to be as successful either way. So it's almost like, well, do you pivot to do that? Or do you just kind of, finish out the season the way you have been? And then, when you go back for season 3, fingers crossed, you take that into account. Like, well, this worked, this didn't work. Because, there are so many shows where people talk all the time like, oh, yeah, season 1's great, but, you can skip 2 and 3. 4 and 5 are great. 6 is a mess. Like, that's just television. That's not abnormal for you to have highs and lows in TV shows. It's just something to notice, I suppose.
I agree. I think that I just hope that they know what they're doing. That sounds so negative. It really isn't. I think we can both agree that this is it was on our top 10 lists last year, and there's a reason for that. It's because it's a easily recommendable to people who are willing to listen show, and it's easily digestible. and all of the characters give you enough hope for a world that we can hopefully end up enjoying in the future.
Well, I think there's also, yeah, I think there's something also to say that a lot of people came off of season 1 saying very much the same thing. It's like, wow, this is a really wholesome show. You just come out of it feeling good pretty much every episode. So I think there might be a side effect of that too, where your audience is telling you one thing, like, yes, we want wholesome all the time. But the way wholesome works the best is when it's in reaction to problems, and how you respond to those. So I think what you have with season 2 is, yes, a very wholesome show, but not as affecting as the first season because its problems aren't as big or as long lasting. Now, that all being said, you mentioned top 10s. Right now, straight up, still top 10 for me.
Okay,
season 2 is still top 10. If that is what it takes to drive home how I feel about the quality overall, that's what I'm saying. Comparing, and it's a little unfair too, because you're comparing to me what I think is a perfect season of television to its follow-up. You're never going to really match that. That's unheard of in a television series.
Because your expectations are there now.
Yeah,
so.
To have 2 back-to-back perfect seasons is, I don't think that's ever a thing. If you know it, let me know, but so I can watch it.
It is a thing, but I will not preach its name anymore on this show because I feel like I've straight up beat it to death, and that is Mr. Robot, but that's just my personal opinion. It's a short, concise show, and I think consistently it was perfect for every season, but that's just me.
That is all I have to say on Ted Lasso season 2 at the moment. If things change, I will come back and update it. But if not, then you can just kind of take that as my overall review of season 2.
Well, if you haven't already seen any of the previews or seen advertisements for it anywhere, you can actually watch Ted Lasso starring Jason Sudeikis and Heather Waddington. I butchered her last name. Then you can catch it on Apple TV Plus. Is that what it's called? Apple TV Plus?
Yep.
Okay.
They're all pluses and minuses there.
Yep. So. Welcome to HBO Minus.
Wow, I'm not sure about the value of this, but I'm intrigued.
It's got only the racist stuff. So,
God.
Yeah, it's lower
that
quality.
Is a minus.
It's only in 240p, and all the subtitles are in German. It's a whole mess.
Yeesh.
Yeah. No, it's HBO Min. There we go. It's Disney minus.
Yeah.
Same thing. Same problem. Lower quality German subtitles.
So that is it for me. What did you watch?
Zach, I've been quite busy, but also dealing with a lot of life stuff. I obviously have a different background. I moved into a new place. It's going to look different over the course. Look, I mean, there's some issues with some lining up of stuff, but it'll change over the course of a couple of weeks. Hopefully it looks kind of nice.
No, I'm judging you right now.
As you
should. You didn't get your leveler out.
Fuck. Hold on, let me pull out my scale with a little bubble in the middle that you can just like tell if it's off, the little bubble.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. Anyway, I've been quite busy doing all of that kind of stuff, busy with work as well, but I've been managing to watch just a couple of things. I did continue with 9 Perfect Strangers, but I'm going to wait until that show finishes along with our Ted Lasso and hold off on my questions, comments, and concerns about that show because for right now, they're still pretty steady when it comes to how I feel about it. And if you want to check out what I am actually talking about, you can catch our episode that we released last week. It was last week, right? Or the week before?
It was last week.
Last week. The days are blending together. Another thing that I watched that just came out to Netflix streaming, but was supposed to be released or got limited release last year. There's a film called Worth, starring Michael Keaton.
Okay.
And oh my gosh, Stanley Tucci. And it's basically follows the true events of this lawyer and his law firm dealing with having to come up with the value of human lives after the tragedy of September 11th. And it's
so an upper.
Yeah, no, it's a real humdinger. Yeah, definitely watch Ted Lasso after this because it brings you down. It's not something you gather the whole family for, but you can kind of tell that with the poster and the promotional art because it's very much a text of the word, like it's the title and then it's just a bunch of the characters and it's like a beige background and you're like, ugh, this is a gross poster. Anyway, phenomenal acting from Michael Keaton and Stanley Tucci. Like I said, it follows. I'm actually going to look up follows synopsis. Ken Feinberg as he deals with cynicism, bureaucracy, and politics to help the victims of 9/11. So he comes at this with. Hang on. There we go. We're back. I had some technical issues. He's doing this with the best intentions. Like he takes this pro bono case so that basically the U.S. economy doesn't collapse after the attacks, and because they're the airlines are worried about being sued by the victims, naturally so, and major companies that got affected by employees both dying and also their stocks and values basically changing after the attacks. They are worried about not getting enough payback from the government because they're just looking for like tax breaks and stuff. Right. So he's kind of dealing with this problem, to put it lightly, from many different angles. But I mean, it's a very stressful watch because one, lawyers in most movies are not they're not almost ever the good guy, I should say. But Michael Keaton, even with the best intentions, is having to say like, hey, look, I set up these rules. I set up this algorithm so that we input like how much money they made in a specific year and then what their job is on like a scale of how much it's worth and everything. And then a person who was a janitor is not getting as much of a payout as the CEO of a company in one of the towers.
Monetizing payouts based off human lives.
He's having to deal with that and dealing with victims and their very natural emotions with reacting to, I just want to either be remunerated. I don't like that word. Fine, fuck me. Or being just compensated was the word I was looking for. It wasn't even the right word. Or just being left alone because they just want to move on after a tragedy like this, because family members were lost and kids were left parentless after this.
Right. Well, and that would be a tragedy in and of itself. The event, obviously. But then to have someone saying, well, this is what your loved one's life was based on, or this is what it was worth based on math. Yeah. And it's like, fucking math.
You don't know who my husband was. You don't know who my wife was.
Yeah.
And it's dealing with a lot of that and these one-on-one interactions that he has with phenomenal actors who I believe are... I haven't seen in anything. I didn't recognize anything besides the three main leads. And while I will say that, coming on to the 20th anniversary of September 11th is coming up, I believe next weekend, right? It's next Sunday.
Yep.
I am so sorry. Literally, like I said, days are blending together. September 11th is this coming Saturday. And it's a very timely release, and I think that people should watch it to gain a perspective on something that, for a lot of Gen Zers who are growing up on TikTok and they were born after this, didn't experience this tragedy, I think should gain perspective on this event that affected entire generations of Americans and the world.
And still has, we're still dealing with the consequences of even the reactions to that as well, and very pertinent and timely.
Absolutely. I mean, I won't bring politics or world events into this, although they would be applicable now. But but just with the president's recent actions overseas and how that's affecting people that are dealing with the conflict that was started because of 9/11. And so it makes it all the more timely that the things that are happening out in the real world are affecting because this film came out last year, but it's being released on Netflix. Yeah, it's being released on Netflix at this exact moment on purpose. So I think that people should definitely give it a watch, if not just for some perspective, or watch any of the other great films that they made just a few years after. World Trade Center being a phenomenal one, Fahrenheit 9/11 being another one, although Michael Moore's directing capabilities notwithstanding. It put me in the mood where I kind of had to sit back and go, shit.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you just need one of those movies that like it feeds you all the information of something that you don't think about on a day-to-day basis unless it specifically affected you. Of course, I just didn't have to deal with that, but I remember specifically that day.
It's pretty much a guarantee that anyone our age has their own story, or around the same age, around where you're capable of having that sort of memory. Then they can absolutely tell you where they were, what they were doing, how their parents were reacting, usually how their teachers were reacting. Yeah, it's one of those watershed moments in history, right?
For sure. So with all that being said, I know I didn't really have that much to add to. I don't want to reveal too much because it's not like plot based to where there's twists and turns and deceptions and all that. It's very much factual and I'm trying to think of the right phrase. It's eye-opening, I would say. So it gives you a healthy perspective on something that was a devastating world event to at least America.
Well, and on a more personal scale as well. It sounds like not like a world, sort of scale, but a personal one.
Right. So check it out. It's on Netflix right now. And the final thing that I watched was Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
And yes, the new Marvel movie.
The new Marvel Cinematic Universe release.
Now, Nick, I'm anxious to hear what your thoughts on this are, because I have been hearing nothing but good things.
So, I am happy to report that not only is the film great, you also just don't have to have seen any of the Marvel movies in the past to enjoy this film. It does help, because there are obvious cameos and references to previous films, and it sets up for the future of the MCU in various ways. But overall, it's a fantastic action-adventure martial arts film, and I highly recommend people... No, we'll actually get to that in a second. I got ahead of myself there, but...
I've seen that a lot of people are saying it's like the best origin story.
I actually... Let me bring that up, because I think when I typed it out, when I actually am able to type out my thoughts into words with time and effort, then I actually am able to be coherent, which is...
Go figure.
Go figure. I said it's the best origin story of the MCU so far, even if it doesn't feel like an MCU movie. It very much doesn't. Let me actually pull up the director, because it's kind of funny. You'll look at his filmography and wonder, wait, why did he get this? Why did he get this Marvel deal here? So Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, who directed Short Term 12, Just Mercy, and The Glass Castle.
Yeah.
So he's worked with Brie Larson almost exclusively.
Yeah.
And he's a very smaller director. Like he deals more with like personal stories.
Yeah, well, it's actually a pretty indicative route of the way Kevin Feige seems to be approaching Phase 4 is taking these directors that you wouldn't necessarily always think of as like, oh yeah, those are like action movie people.
With one director people. Being an exception, but yes.
Which one are you thinking of?
Sam Raimi.
Oh well, yeah.
But I think that was a very specific choice for Doctor Strange 2.
That was in reaction to the original director dropping, was it not?
To Scott Derrickson dropping so that he could spend more time with family. Yeah.
But you have Chloe Zhao doing Eternals.
Yes, and that film, along with Shang-Chi, if you have the ability to watch it, is absolutely what I'm looking forward to most about the Phase 4 and at least the future for Marvel, in that they are taking unique styles of look for the film. Because for the last 11 years we've been dealing with essentially the same look to the films, because even if they change direct DPs, or even if they change just overall cinematography, different styles, and it may look or feel like that director's work, it still is essentially another Marvel movie. But with these films, there's a definite tone difference. There's a definite coloring difference. They're actually taking the notes from what I assume is just all of the YouTube essayists. They're like, hey, these all look the same, and they look muted and gray and gross, and all of the music too is just, the music is phenomenal. Let me actually continue with my little mini review. I said it doesn't really feel like an MCU movie, a bit annoying with certain story tropes being overutilized, which I will get into without spoiling it, but it's all forgiven for sweet action choreography / cinematography. 8 out of 10. I said at the end. One of the bigger things that kind of bothered me with it was the overutilization of flashbacks, which I feel like not a lot of people are bringing up all that much. Just for frame of reference, hold on. Frame of reference. I went to go see the showing at 8:00 on Thursday night because I was really excited for it. And my job requires me to wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning the next day. So I had to do that on Friday. And by the time the movie was over, and I knew I had to watch to the end of the credits because there's 2 post-credit scenes. Spoiler alert. 2 post-credit scenes. It was like 10:45, and I was just like, "Fuck, I have no time to sleep." So I was a little bit more tired than the rest of the audience, given those circumstances.
Yeah.
But with all that being said, the amount of flashbacks that they use and the number of times that they show the same scene but in different perspectives was a little bit distracting and kind of ruined the momentum of the film quite a few times. I'm not going to say that it just totally ruins it, but it was very noticeable for me specifically.
Well, obviously I have not seen it. But just to play devil's advocate from what I'm hearing you tell me, that's a pretty like kung fu genre sort of thing, is it not? Like the flashbacks. Like I feel like I've seen several kung fu movies that are like in the middle is like it's short flashback right now.
That may be the case, but I mean, if that was a direct reference to other kung fu films or other martial arts films where they're just like trying to tell a story but in a different way, kind of out of order or through flashbacks, it was still, I would not forgive those films either.
Fair.
It was just, in general, it was a bit distracting because I'm getting a discussion from one child's perspective talking to his father, and then I get that same flashback 25 minutes later, like after you've already moved on from that scene, from a third character's perspective, looking in on that conversation and getting their perspective. And it was just, I feel like it sounds like I'm getting hung up on this. I'm not, because...
Well, it just broke the momentum down for me.
Like I said, yeah, it's still a thoroughly enjoyable film. The action set pieces, like I said, the choreography when it comes to the actual fight scenes is phenomenal. It's exactly the quality that I expect from a Tony Jaa film, a Donnie Yen film. In fact, Donnie Yen was actually set to play the father figure in Shang-Chi, but he had prior commitments.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and fun fact: this is actually Tony Leung's first American English-speaking film.
Wow.
Yeah, and his first villain role, which is insane to me because he's been making he's been making films for like over 40 years.
Yeah.
Not over 40, over 30 years, and everyone is just phenomenal in this. I will say that there is one character that I can't tell if it's a spoiler at this point, but they bring a previous MCU character in to tie it into the other MCU films, specifically Iron Man 3. And I find that character to be a bit distracting. There's always that one character, and I thought that was going to be Awkwafina, but Awkwafina actually plays the heroic best friend kind of trope to a T quite well. And I found her to be more endearing as the film went on. I thought normally she's that annoying, like quirky one-liner character, but while she was a few times at the beginning of the film, she slowly kind of grew on me. But another character, who I won't spoil, was that the whole way through.
And this is the previous MCU character?
Yes. And I
know
feel like
what you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah. And the film just overall felt just... I'm being very nice here, like just maybe 10-15 minutes too long. It just felt like over the course of the entire film, it just felt a little touch too long. But again, like I said, with my life schedule, it kind of affected me in a different way. And I wish I had seen it fully perky. No, not fully perky. Fully perked up and awake so that I can enjoy it fully. But I still enjoyed it.
Cool. Well, I'm very excited to see it. Unfortunately, I don't think I will be seeing it until those 45 days of theater only are up.
Right. Well, did they say... I think they said that even after its theatrical run, it's still not coming to Disney Plus, right?
No, it's just going to be available VOD.
Right.
Which I'm perfectly fine with, but yeah, I will be waiting 45 days for that. So,
actually, that was a discussion that we briefly touched on before recording today, and I wanted to talk about because as I was leaving the movie that night, and as I've been reading more and more on online forums, I found to be in sort of not a privileged position because it's myself taking the risk, knowing the experience that I will enjoy, but also the fact that we're in a global pandemic. And I know we kind of always bring it back. And, you know, I've been saying over the last couple of weeks or months, really, go see it in theaters because I thoroughly enjoyed it in theaters. And as long as you're safe and as long as you're vaccinated, you should do so. That being said, what I wanted to talk about was the fact that that's it. We're in a fucking pandemic. So regardless, and I say this coming from a place of privilege because there are people out there who literally cannot go see it in theaters because they are immunocompromised, because they just recently had to deal with COVID and they don't want to get it again. Bless you.
Thank you.
Zach just sneezed for audio listeners. It actually didn't pick up, so that's cool. So I didn't have to say anything.
Could have just kept rolling, but that's fine. Could have just kept rolling.
That's my fault. You know, I just wanted to be a good person. I don't want you to go to hell, Zach. So I saved you.
Past that.
Anyway, but there are people who literally cannot see it because they don't have the ability to, or they do not want to risk themselves or their family members.
Right.
And while I may be in a position to where I can go see a movie and then come back and not have to worry about necessarily getting anybody sick, as long as I just fucking keep people away from my place, which is ideal. It's my dream. Is I just don't know. I want to be able to enjoy a theater experience.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it's not about the movie studio, it's not about the movie stars, it's not about the employees at the movie theater. As nice as they can be, and as much as I've been in that position and I know, I would much rather deal with an empty shift with no people coming in than a busy shift in the middle of a global pandemic where everybody's just walking around without masks and not taking it seriously. And I know this won't evolve into a conversation on a movie podcast about not wearing masks and people's idiotic perceptions on whether or not the vaccine is safe or real.
You guys are fucking stupid. I'll say it.
I think you can gather our opinions on the subject just from context alone and the framing of this rant, but
I would be as straight up as possible. Anti-maskers are fucking stupid.
I love you, Zach. I think people who wanted to treat this with the modicum of respect that they would anything else, say a global disaster like a pandemic, or if they treated it as seriously as a hurricane or a tornado or any other natural disaster, then this pandemic would have been basically null and void by the time we would be recording this episode. After 2020, after dealing with the quarantine and everything. So rolling back to why we're no longer going to recommend going to see movies in theaters due to a global pandemic, I found it to be irresponsible from the very small platform that we have here, Zach, on the internet and on streaming services. I think we can't recommend something that could put you at risk, regardless of how safe you can be. And I'm not only saying this to you because I want you to take it seriously. I am actually going to start taking something serious for once and doing the same. So until things change for the better, and they look like they will be for the better in the long run, I'm going to be doing something that I had to deal with in 2020 at the beginning, and never thought I would have to deal with for a longer period than that, because it was scary for me. Because it's a part of my life that I love, and that's going to the movies. I'm kind of dodging around it, but I'm not going to be going back to the movie theater until things change for the better. Shang-Chi will be my last movie.
I absolutely get it. You know, I said pretty much the same thing after I had not seen a movie in theaters since, I believe, Invisible Man.
Yeah.
Was the last one I saw in theaters up until we went and saw Green Knight about a month ago.
And that was
and that was, to me, an affirmation of the time I had not gone to the movies, because it was fucking abysmal.
Right.
It was, I mean, quite frankly, we're in Texas, so you can just expound from that.
Yeah.
You know, it's fucking horrifying.
It's the personal responsibility that every one of us, as I almost said American citizen, as a human being, to acknowledge what's going on is something serious. I, again, do not want to bring personal politics into this, but we are having more and more cases of people getting sick from COVID and having to deal with the ramifications of their decisions to not get vaccinated, and they are going without the sense of smell for the rest of their lives, or they're
that's if they're lucky.
Yeah, that's like minimum effects. That's just like, oh, this chicken tastes weird. Well, guess what? Every food is going to taste weird for the rest of your life. Congratulations. You decided to not wear a fucking mask and get vaccinated.
Well, I think something to remember, too, is not everyone who gets COVID is automatically anti-mask, and that's part of the problem.
Right.
Is you have a section of the population who cannot get vaccinated. It's just not possible for them to be so. Or if they can, it's drawn out more because they have to go through a whole process of getting their first shot, of getting their second shot, and getting their booster. You know, like, it's not just a schedule your appointment and go get poked sort of thing for that. It's a whole thing. And even then, they're still at a higher risk. So it's I know a lot of people are like, I'm ready for this to, including people who are not anti-mask, are like, I'm ready for this to be over. I want it to go back to normal. Things will not go back to normal until we take it seriously.
Right.
So the sooner you start, as hard and as, maybe annoying as it's going to be for you, the sooner you do it, the faster we'll be done.
Yeah. I don't understand how that sort of lesson hasn't been ingrained in everyone's personality. The whole like, eat your peas. Well, I hate peas. Well, eat them because otherwise you don't get to eat dessert. Dessert being the freedom to walk around and not have to worry about about getting infected with a disease.
Well,
the peas being wearing a mask.
Yeah, well, now it's morphed into I don't want to wear peas. Instead, I know better, so I'll go take horse dewormer so I can eat my dessert.
Yeah, I don't want to eat peas because I hear that they are not actually good for you. So I'm gonna go eat these
from some guy on
deep
YouTube.
fried Twinkies.
Yeah,
I mean I'm worried that we're at a point to where we can say as much as we want. And like, if we were the number one podcast in the world and everybody listens to our podcast, Zach, first off, congrats to you. Congrats to me.
Congrats to you.
We did it. Fuck you, Joe Rogan. Who has COVID right now. So I guess that's maybe not the best timing on my part. If we were if we had the biggest platform on every single place that we could possibly have, and we told everyone to go get vaccinated and to take it seriously and wear a mask, there are still going to be people, too large of a number of people are going to say, no, I don't believe what you're saying. And granted, we're not medical professionals. We shouldn't be giving advice to people, but this is common sense stuff. This is, I don't want to get sick, you don't want to get sick.
The common sense is maybe listen to the medical professionals.
Yeah, they are saying what we are saying. We're just regurgitating what they are saying, which is the best way to stay safe and not get sick or make people who can't get vaccinated sick is to wear a mask and to get vaccinated. It's as simple as that.
And look, I get it. Villeneuve's and Jenkins of the world.
Patty Jenkins?
Yeah, you want your movie in theaters. You want people to see it in theaters. I get it. I understand. However, as Alex Winters put it, maybe we should wait until after the pandemic to figure out the streaming versus theater debate.
Thank you for bringing up Bill S. motherfucking Preston, who someone called him Ted, and he had the best response to that. But please follow Alex Winters on Twitter. He's such a delight. He sums up how we're all feeling. Like, hey, maybe we should stop making this kind of more of a me issue and start dealing with the fact that this isn't about you. This is about everyone else. And this whole problem is just highlighting how people are treating any sort of problem that deals with everyone being affected by it.
For some reason, we've concocted this reality in our heads where there needs to be sides to this, unfortunately, where it should just be like, oh yeah, let's get through this, you know.
Yeah, there are no sides. We're just gonna go ahead and wrap up because this is not going to end the way you think it's going to go. For the longest while, I haven't been really overt about saying it, but going to the movies is like going to the spa for a lot of people. It's like going to the library and reading your favorite book. It's like having coffee with your significant other and not a care in the world is in your head. It's the most comfortable place that I feel that I'm in outside of my home. And you fucking ruined it for me by not having the common decency to wear a piece of paper over your fucking face and getting a boo-boo shot in your arm, which was literally the least you can possibly do. But you made it personal, so fuck you. This has been Lights, Camera, Nonsense, giving you all the latest movie magic you may have missed. I forgot the rest of the outro. Zach, tune in every week for all the latest news, reviews, and what else.
Do you do's.
Thanks for tuning in. We promise we will hopefully be a little bit in a better mood about this, but honestly, who knows? Get vaccinated, wear a mask, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.